Everyone's raving about the Wilson drivers in 2025, but I got one thing on my mind. Why did they choose titanium? This has had a huge impact on how the club performs, sounds and looks. And don't just take my word for it, this is what real golfers are saying.
This driver right here is brand new driver from Wilson this year, and could this actually start to scare the big boys? The big boys being Ping, Callaway, TaylorMade, because if a player starts to swap into this who plays on tour, that could mean big things. Now last night I had a great night. I had a selection of people come down to the driving range, Peter being one of them, and I let him, he's a mid-handicapper, test these drivers for the very first time. And it was a little bit heartbreaking. I let him take off the plastic. I usually really enjoy that, but you've got to do what you got to do. He thoroughly enjoyed taking the plastic off these drivers for the very first time. And well, he mentioned number one, that he wasn't very keen on the big heads of the last few years. So I'm guessing he's sort of referring to the Max drivers from Ping, so G430 10K Max, QI10 Max, and the AI Smoke Max of last year. Now this is Wilson's, here you go, a little bit of a closer look, and actually this is titanium, and there you go. There's the face. He also mentioned the sound of this driver was, anybody remember this driver? The burner, the first TaylorMade burner. Funny story actually, I had that exact driver and I think it was probably the first driver that I got fitted for. Go on, you must remember that. And the final thing was that he thought this LS model, so that's this one right here, looked really quite compact. And you know what? It does look quite short, doesn't it? Sort of from the back edge, the skirt area to this leading edge. It does look quite compact. Does that compact shape, and you can see it here, not make it harder to hit? No? To be fair, the shape of this does look a lot more streamlined. It's like they've raised that skirt area at the back, and anytime you hear that, you've got to think it's going to help clubhead speed. And I'm looking at that head now and I'm thinking, ooh, intimidating. And my driver game's feeling quite good right now. So I'm sort of thinking that would probably be the driver that I would put myself in. But I'm not sure. So let's hit one away. Line-wise, I am going for this. We're going for like that bit where it sort of drops down. So that's the sort of tiger line for this, the 13th. Right, all these shafts are what, by the way, Wilson have recommended for me inside each and every one of these heads. Okay, LS model. It does look quite small and compact, and a little bit intimidating, but let's see how she flies. And I want to say, this is quite a surprising head for Peter. Whew, hello, flat flight, bullet straight, a little bit of a push, but that was flat. Interesting, so 2,700 spin, 108 clubhead speed, it is cold, 243 carry, 280 total. Apex 98. That was flat, right? And interestingly, right, hopefully you can see that. That's where I just hit the bugger. So I'm going to say it's pretty forgiving. And I'm actually looking at that right now going, how deep is that face? So what I mean by deep is sort of quite chunky, not shallow, deep in this area right here. Okay, fair enough. Now, I'm interested because Peter also mentioned the sound of this one. So this one's a titanium driver. This one right here on the left is the LS, and it's made up of carbon. Well, certainly more carbon. It's not the carbon model. There is an extra model in here to talk about. I'm leaving that for a second. I am, yes, for very good reason. But can you see the differences there in that skirt area? Shorter, feels a little more elongated here on the bottom, and the head size looks very different. Now, this is very much more made of carbon, so it gives some bit more of a duller sound in my opinion. Let's see this. Grabbing some more balls on my bag, because when I first heard Peter try this, and I keep referring back to him because I really valued his opinion. In fact, I really value all your opinions, and I'll let you know we're hosting another one of those nights. It was inside, it's on a driving range, and sometimes that sound, right, can sort of reverberate, can sort of like echo. So let's see if it sounds any different out here. The light is going, I better hurry up here. The light is going. Let's see if the sound's any different. Noise-wise, it sounds, how can I describe that?
It reminds me of, what does it remind me of? Does it remind me of early Berthas were a bit There was something when...
Well, you're interesting
and
you
people
say
were
that.
saying it was noisy.
Because that's titanium. The early burners from TaylorMade were exactly the same. They were titanium. Now it does look a lot bigger, and visually from the top, very, very different. You don't have any carbon. It almost looks like, and I mean this like in the bit I'm looking at this, it looks a bit like a combination of a Stealth, right, with a little red skirt, and I mean like that bit there, and a bit more like a Titleist, because it's sort of that minimalistic look, not a lot of details here. Anybody else agree with me, or have I got that completely wrong? Right, let's find out what it sounds like. Here we go. This looks so different behind the ball. Right, let's see what this sound has. See if it was the same down the range. Ooh, that sounds totally different. That launched really quite high. That defo sounds like a TaylorMade burner. Come on, give me some numbers. Ooh, spun quite a bit that. 3,000 spin, slightly sort of toe side and middle. We're looking at a 233 carry, 102 club speed, 153 ball speed, and a 268 total. Now that can't be grumbled at in terms of total. Slightly down, and the spin's going to play a large factor in that, on the carry. Right, so I mentioned there's 3 models. Here's the final model. So here on the right is the carbon model. Here in the middle is that Max driver we just hit, which I think you can agree with the sound. Defo sounds like that TaylorMade burner, a titanium driver, which, to be fair, in an era of carbon, it sounds different, right? It sounds very different. I'm not gonna say it's like a ping, I'm thinking more TaylorMade burner. And finally, all down there, so LS on the left, Max in the middle, and the carbon driver here on the right. Now, I've saved this to last for one very, very good reason. Because I have last year's carbon driver in my hand. Now, I actually gained this for a couple of months until I got fitted for my Titleist. I actually used this and was in love with it, and I called it the most underrated driver of 2024. So has there been any improvements? Would this cause the big brands to be scared? Would this cause the big brands to be scared? Let me show you the visual upgrades. Well, I actually think they're upgrades. I should also mention on that sound point of all these drivers, they have like this rib section in the internals, all of them do, but remember they have different materials, and this gives it sort of a more appealing sound. Well, appealing, you make your line up on that one. Start with the sole. 2024 version on the left, 2025 version on the right. This area right here in this skirt looks really quite appealing. Also the visuals, you have a tiny bit of carbon here, and you have this sort of carbon section and piece that sits in the sole of this driver. Weighting system front and back, whereas on last year's model you only had this weighting system at the back. So you can adjust these. This is a 3 gram weight, and currently I've got a 9 gram weight set in the back. So right now, to be fair, that's on its most, I guess, forgiving setting, because CG, centre of gravity, is being pulled a little further away from that face. Anytime you do that, makes it more forgiving. Now, that's the visuals from the bottom, and it's not all about the visuals. I'm saying why this is an upgrade. There is a piece of technology that's not groundbreaking in the industry, but new, right? New this year for Wilson. And then from above, I just think it looks a lot tidier, a lot cleaner lines. I guess you sort of, again, see my point? Very, very sort of Stealth-esque. That little red bit, more of a glossy matte, whereas this is more of a duller, brushed, I guess, yeah, well, duller matte finish carbon. This is a glossy carbon. I'm trying to think of a different way to explain that, but one's glossy carbon, one's matte carbon. Nothing more than that. So back to this piece of tech, and let's get this set up. The full swing's in place. I'm on the 13th. We've got all the data from the previous shots. We're going to hit a couple away with each here and see what this tech's about. And honestly, my goal for putting these up against each other is to find out, have these upgrades given more ball speed? Have they given more carry? Have they given more consistency in terms of accuracy, but also, I guess, dispersion in numbers? So we're going to start with the 2025 model.
Okay, so let's whittle through a few more shots with the 2024 and the 2025 driver. Now, if you did game the 2024 driver, let me know your thoughts. Are you still loving it? Are you thinking,
a lot more
okay,
higher and a
this
lot
might
flatter
just
flight?
turn my head? Because as I've said right now, I know visuals aren't everything, but it is a massive upgrade, isn't it? Let's be perfectly honest. But the thing is, What's the data like? We need to hit a few shots to find out, then we can compare.
Having hit a few shots with this now, can you see the slight difference? I would say this here on the outer edge there looks sort of a bit straighter. This model on the left looks a lot more rounded. And I'll be honest with you, I really prefer that rounded, more sort of traditional look. Yeah, I really do prefer, and the glossy sort of finish. Right, one more to hit with the 2024 model. But overall, 2024 goes a lot lower. Sounds totally different, doesn't it? Even though these are both the carbon version, it sounds completely different, which is crazy. I'm not gonna lie, I've smoked those last two, and it's getting cold. Sorry, when I say last two, I mean the last two of this. Now, so far, this year's is literally leaving last year's behind. Right, final one. Let's have a look at that data then. I feel like I'm aiming so far left. That is narrow down there. Wonder if I ever do that in a comp. Wow. That was, again, I can't describe the sound difference. A lot better launch on that one. Is it? Oh, it's definitely a great shot, that. Let me run through those numbers right there. That could be one of the best shots of the day. 2 carry, 2 4-spin, 106 clubhead speed. You can tell it's cold. A 158.9 ball speed. 159 ball speed, smash factor 150, launch 13. That's where I want to see it. And a total of 289. So, let's just run through the overall data between last year's and this year's. Now, the carry. Here we go. Wilson 2024, 242. The Wilson this year, 246. Let's have a look at the overall total. Let's go total. 282 Wilson this year versus 278. Narrow, that is it. And let's go ball speed. I'm always interested in ball speed. Ball speed, 0.5 in it, literally nothing. And let me just show you this. And that is the dispersion right there. So that is, let me click on the right one. Look at him here. That drive there is Wilson 2024. That is a Wilson 2025. That there is a Wilson 2025. And that there is a Wilson 2024. So in terms of overall, the longest was with last year's, but in terms of consistency, I know it's only a small sample size, but that's all we need to test, right? On here on the golf course, we've seen how it performs, we've seen it on the range. I really enjoyed that. And I actually honestly think this could be a big, big club for 2025, that the likes of Paul Waring could now be put in the bag. This could now start to scare the big brands once again, because I said this a few times right now, this product is seriously good, but usually at a fraction of the price. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.